Today comes from Luke chapter 13, verses 10 through 17. Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had crippled her for 18 years. She was bent over and was quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan had bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said this, all his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that he was doing. They say that it was going to be a hot summer in the beginning and a cool summer at the end. Way to go, guys. They say that the Bears only have a 4% chance of making the Super Bowl, and probably inclined to agree with them on that one. They say that the earth is flat. They say that the earth, or the sun rather, revolves around the earth, and that the sun is a habitable planet. They say that mice spontaneously generate out of dirty areas. They say that maggots, also spontaneously generate on meat. They say that sheep grow from trees and out of the ground. Now these are all things that they have said, whoever they may be, those purveyors of great wisdom, and that we have over the years actually believed. I don't know who they are, but they tell us a lot of things, but we are the ones who, when we give them credence, make them the wise ones. We make them the keepers of knowledge and wisdom because we listen to them. We pay attention, and we do what they say. Well, they broke my heart last Tuesday. I was at my son's football practice, and the boys had gone over to practice kicking field goals on the other side of the field. And they all came back over, and there were two kids, one black, one white, who were kind of shoving each other a little bit and talking, and I thought they were just kidding around until right next to me, the black one got on top of the white one and started punching him. And so I went over and I pulled him off and tried to calm him down for a minute. But as soon as I turned my back, he went right back over there and started hitting him again. He started punching him, he took off his helmet, and he threw it across the field and said some choice words that I can't say in church. And then said that basically, this is enough, not really in those words. But we have to ask ourselves, who was the victim in this situation? It's very easy for us to think that, of course, the victim was the white boy who was being the victim of violence at the hands of the black boy, those crazy black folk in their violent ways. But we can also see it that it was the black one who was the victim, because later on I got the rest of the story. You see, the day before, the Caucasian kid had been spitting on the black kid. And then that day, well, he'd gone to his mother and the mother told the coach, and supposedly the situation was taken care of. And then on that next day, when they actually started fighting, apparently he kept doing it and kept calling him nigger. And he kept saying it again and again and again. Now, in the defense of the Caucasian kid, he does have ADHD, and he does tend to get a little bit out there when he hasn't had the right mix and cocktail of his medications. But it's easy to think that perhaps the other, who was the victim of epithets, was the real victim. But you know what? The victim was both of them. The victim is all of us when we decide to listen to what they say, when they say that oppression is okay, when they say that it's only natural that if somebody is different than us, that we should put them in their place of inferiority and take our place up among our laurels of superiority. They say that the only right response and natural response to this is violence, and that we should lash out, and that we should overcome those people who do things like this. This is what they say. But who's listening? Apparently sometimes we are. Not just us here inside of this building, but us collectively. We listen to them, and we let them be the voice of wisdom. They have been saying ridiculous things for a long time, and it was very apparent that, I don't know if the parents of these kids were teaching them this or what the story is, but we know that violence can only breed violence, that this systemic perpetuosity of oppressing and violence and oppression and violence can only continue as long as we keep doing it. And it's only by coincidence that some 50 years ago, a great man stood on the National Mall of Washington, D.C., and he said that he had been to the mountaintop. Now, it would have made perfect sense, being an African-American man in those times, to say that I have been to the mountaintop and I have seen the black man overcome the white man, or that I have seen the white man become inferior to the black man. But he didn't say that. No, his message was much more inclusive. He said he had been to the mountaintop, and up there he had had a dream. He said that he had had a dream where boys and girls were not judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. He said that was his dream, that his own children could walk with kids of another color, and that people would see that and not think that somehow that was strange, or that that was wrong. Well, Jesus had a similar dream, and I don't think it's any accident that when Jesus started his earthly ministry, he stood up at the synagogue, and he unrolled the scroll of Isaiah, and he quoted Isaiah 61. He said this, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor." Good news, the gospel. Jesus started off by saying, here is the gospel. He has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. In another famous speech, our Lord stood up in front of people who were thick-headed and hard-headed, who didn't want to hear what he had to say, and he told them, this is what I am about, and this, if you call yourselves followers of me, is also what you are about. Well, fast forward a short time later, and we find him again at the synagogue in the passage that I just read. And he was teaching at the synagogue. People listened to him. People revered him as a very wise man. Jesus was probably one of the smartest guys of his time in human terms.